For today's vocabulary lesson, there'll be 35 words in alphabetical order. Make sure to watch all the way to the end to really increase your advanced vocabulary. And to study more, use the link down below to download a free PDF that accompanies this lesson. Abundant, abundant.
Abundantly.
Abundant means plenty or more than enough. Oftentimes, when people have a garden, if they have a lot of tomatoes one year, they have an abundant amount of tomatoes. Or you can also say they have an abundance if you're using this as a noun. This year, I had an abundant amount of sugar snap peas, and my family just loved them. Amicable, amicable.
It was amicable.
If you are amicable with someone, it means you are friendly with them and there is no conflict. A really common way we use this advanced word is when two people break up or they get divorced from a marriage, but they're still friends and they don't fight. We say it was an amicable divorce. That means they both agreed in a friendly way to not be married anymore. If someone asks you if you're in a fight with someone and you're not in a fight with them, you don't dislike them for any reason, you can say that you are amicable with them. Ample, ample.
So ample.
Ample also means more than enough or plenty. The most common way that we use this word ample is when we're talking about time. If you have more time than you need to finish something, you can say we have ample time to finish this task. Or if someone does not get their work done and you're questioning whether or not they used their time to their advantage, you can say you had ample time to finish this. Why is it not complete? If you want to share something with someone because you have a lot of it, you could say we have an ample amount of tomatoes from our garden. Would you like some? This means we have more than enough. Anomaly, anomaly.
It's quite an anomaly.
When something is described as an anomaly, it means it is completely unexpected, unusual, and surprising. In July, it is very hot where I live, and it could be an anomaly if one day we get a very cold day. Or some places that do not get snow, if they get snow one time of the year, it's a complete anomaly. It's just something very strange and unexpected. Apprehensive. Apprehensive.
And why are you so apprehensive?
If you are apprehensive about something, it means you're very nervous and anxious about it. Oftentimes, if you have an upcoming exam, you'll feel apprehensive about it. You will be anticipating it. You'll be very nervous. You are apprehensive. Apprehensive can also be used in a positive way to mean you're nervous, but you're also excited. Many people are apprehensive for their wedding day. They're excited, but they're also a bit nervous and they have a little bit of anxiety. Astute. Astute.
I'm very astute.
If you describe someone or something as very astute, it means that it is very smart and perceptive. A really common way that we use this advanced word is when someone makes an observation and we think it is very accurate and we are thinking they are very observant, we can say it is an astute observation. We can also compliment a person by calling them very astute. This means very smart and perceptive. Boisterous. Boisterous.
Boisterous.
This is a very fun advanced word to say. It's very commonly used as well. Typically, if we describe someone as boisterous, we are saying they're pretty loud and obnoxious. The word loud and boisterous usually goes together. Children are often very boisterous when they have a birthday party because there's cake and presents and balloon, and it gives them a lot of energy and they become very loud. Some people have boisterous personalities, and this can be somewhat of a positive thing, but typically we use this advanced word in a negative way. Concur. Concur.
I concur.
If you concur with someone, you agree with them. To concur means to agree. If you do not concur, it means you disagree. If you want to use this word, it's typically used in a more formal sense. You could say, I concur with your opinion on the matter. Contentious. Contentious.
Because they make things contentious.
If something or someone is contentious, it is likely to cause argument and disagreement. The topic of politics is almost always contentious. And you can also describe people as contentious as well. Many people think that politicians, especially in the United States, are very contentious. They tend to disagree and argue a lot. If there is a debate and people are being very fierce in the debate, they're arguing a lot, you can say the debate was contentious. I really like this word and I recommend that you try to use it in your conversation. Cumbersome. Cumbersome.
Yeah, but that song was cumbersome.
If something is described as cumbersome, it means it's heavy and difficult to manage. When I was younger, I used to be a nanny, and I would pick up a boy from school, and he had quite the cumbersome instrument. He played the very large, upstanding bass, and it barely fit into my car because it was so cumbersome. So typically, this word is used to describe something very large and sort of inconvenient to move around. Oftentimes, when you're moving, you might have a box that's very large and cumbersome as well. This word is definitely a bit more formal and advanced than everyday English. You'll often see this word in a book or in writing. Detrimental. Detrimental.
It is so detrimental to a child.
If something is described as detrimental, it means it's harmful or dangerous. And typically we use this word detrimental to describe something very extremely harmful or dangerous. For instance, smoking cigarettes is detrimental to your health. It can have very, very negative consequences. Discerning. Discerning.
You've got a discerning eye.
Discerning means you have really good judgment. For instance, someone who studies a lot of art will have a discerning eye for good art, or they will have a discerning eye for valuable art. If someone has really good opinions, really researched opinions on something, you can say they have very discerning opinions on the topic. This is kind of a positive word. It's definitely complimenting their judgment. Discreet. Discreet.
So discreet.
If you are doing something in a discreet way, or you say that something is discreet, it means it's doing it in a more secretive way to avoid attention. If you're planning a surprise birthday party for someone, you may want to be discreet when you're doing things for the planning. Like you wouldn't want to be very obvious about buying balloons. You would want to do it in a discreet way. Maybe you hide them somewhere in your house. You might want to not show the cake that you bought. You would want to be discreet. Eloquent. Eloquent.
I am not eloquent.
If you are eloquent, it means you are very well spoken and very persuasive when you speak and when you write. If you give a very eloquent speech, the audience will clap very loudly at the end because it was such a great speech. If you want to give someone a compliment on their writing, you can say, you write so eloquently. Exasperate. Exasperate. If you exasperate someone, you annoy them greatly. If you say that something is exasperating, it means it's very irritating and annoying. Sometimes when children ask you a lot of questions consecutively, they say, what's this? What do you use it for? Why do you have it? Where are we going? What are we doing? That can be a bit exasperating. Exemplary. Exemplary.
Exemplary.
If something is exemplary, it's serving as a good example. Oftentimes, when a child is behaving very well, they're being quiet, they're sitting at a dinner table eating their food very politely, we can say that is exemplary behavior. It just means it's so good that it's an example for other children. Flabbergasted. Flabbergasted.
I'm flabbergasted.
If someone is flabbergasted, it means they are extremely surprised or shocked. And this is a really fun English word to say. It sounds made up, but it really is a word in the dictionary. Flabbergasted. I was absolutely flabbergasted the last time I went grocery shopping because my total price for all my groceries was so expensive. So I was extremely shocked. Although it seems like everything is expensive today, so maybe I wasn't as flabbergasted as I would have been a few years ago. Haphazard. Haphazard. This next English word I am sometimes guilty of saying incorrectly, along with a lot of other native English speakers. The word is haphazardly, but some people think it's haphazardly. And when I tell you the definition, you'll understand why. If something is done haphazardly, it means it's done without planning or any order. For instance, instead of putting books back on a shelf in alphabetical order and nice and lined up, if you just throw them on the shelf in any order and maybe some of them are this way and some of them are this way, we would describe that as doing a haphazard job. So it means it's lacking effort and you're not really being organized in the way that you do something. Oftentimes, when events are poorly planned, we call it haphazard planning. Hypothetical. Hypothetical.
Hypothetically.
If something is hypothetical, it's based on theory or assumption, but it's not based on what's actually happening. A lot of times, when people are trying to solve a problem or figure out the best way that they are going to do something, they think of a lot of hypothetical situations. This is the most common way that we use this word, a hypothetical situation. This means you're thinking about all the things that could happen, but none of them have actually happened before. Someone might ask you, what would you do if you won the lottery? You might say, well, that's a very hypothetical situation because it's very unlikely to happen. It definitely hasn't happened yet, but I'll think about the situation as if it was just an idea. Impeccable. Impeccable.
Impeccable.
If something is impeccable, it is perfect and without flaws. You might know someone who is very clean, very orderly, and they like things to be very nice. You might call their house impeccable if it is so clean, organized, and nice. Or if you have something very old, but it doesn't have any flaws, you can say it is in impeccable shape. I've had these shoes for several years, but they're still in impeccable shape. That means there's no tears, there's no dirt on them. They just look perfect. Incessant. Incessant.
The incessant self-regard.
If something is incessant, it means it's never stopping and it's very continuous. For instance, if you have had a lot of rain in the last few days, you could say this rain is absolutely incessant. It just does not stop. It feels very continuous. Or if there is a noise that's very annoying and you keep hearing it, you can say, what is that incessant noise? So typically we use this word to describe something that's negative, that feels like it keeps continuing or keeps happening. Innate. Innate.
Innate femininity.
If we say that something or someone has an innate ability, it means they were born with it and it's very natural. This is the most common way that we use the word innate. For instance, Adele, Dave Grohl, Lady Gaga, we would describe these musicians as having innate talent. They're so talented that they just have to be born with the skills instead of working very hard at it. So if you have an innate talent, it means you're just naturally good at it without even putting much effort into it. Inquisitive. Inquisitive. If someone is described as being inquisitive, it means they question a lot of things. They're very curious and eager to learn. We often describe children as being very inquisitive. Sometimes when someone is being very curious and we're wondering why they're being so curious and we kind of see that as a negative thing, we could say, why are you being so inquisitive right now or so questioning? Lackadaisical. Lackadaisical.
Lackadaisical leadership once again.
If you describe someone as lackadaisical, it means that they are lacking excitement and determination. If someone has a lackadaisical attitude at work, it means they are not very eager to get tasks done. They're basically half working, they're not doing a very good job. So, this is a very negative adjective to use about someone. And it happens to be a very fun word to say, even though I would say it's quite an advanced English word. Lackadaisical. Lethargic. Lethargic. If someone is lethargic, they are sluggish or slow, and they're very apathetic, meaning they don't care much about what's going on. This is another negative adjective. You're basically calling someone kind of lazy when you're using this word. Or oftentimes we use this word when someone is sick and they just don't have any energy to do anything. For instance, when it's very hot out, sometimes when it's extremely hot, it can make people feel lethargic, like they can't really get up to do anything and they're moving very slowly. If you go to the doctor's office, they may ask you if you've been feeling lethargic if they are trying to diagnose your sickness. And this would just mean you have low energy levels. Meticulous. Meticulous.
Meticulous.
If someone is meticulous, they are very careful and precise. This is definitely a positive quality to have. Or if you do something meticulously, it means you're doing it very carefully to try to avoid error. Some people, when a problem arises, they do very meticulous research to try to find the answer. So instead of just asking their friend, they'll actually go to the library, they'll seek out expert opinions, they'll go on Google and read every article on the subject. They are very meticulous in their research. If someone is doing something very carefully, for instance, someone is decorating a cake and they don't want to make any errors or have any part of the cake look sloppy, they will do it meticulously. Nonchalant. Nonchalant.
And it's not nonchalant.
If someone is nonchalant, they are very calm and unconcerned. If you are having a nonchalant attitude, it means, you don't care much about what's going on. You're just happy to be there. It's not really a positive thing or a negative thing. But sometimes if people think you're not being too formal enough or too energetic enough, they will be like, why are you so nonchalant right now? Or if they think you should be more concerned about something, they maybe will say to you, you shouldn't be so nonchalant about this. You have a test on Friday. You shouldn't be so nonchalant about studying. You should get studying right now. So they're telling you need to care more and be more concerned. Nostalgic. Nostalgic.
Here, this make you all nostalgic?
If someone is nostalgic, they are longing for the past. This means they wish it was like old times. A lot of movies and television shows are playing on people's nostalgia. This means people's longing for the past. So, for instance, we would call a remake of an old movie. For instance, they remade The Little Mermaid. Even though it was an older movie from when I was a kid, they made it now. So people like me who are nostalgic, who like the old things in our past, would like to see it. And kids could see The Little Mermaid today as well. Oblivious. Oblivious.
Oblivious, huh?
If someone is oblivious, they are unaware and not noticing. There might be someone who is studying really hard. They're really focused on their book or their work, and there is just absolute chaos going on around them. Maybe there's even an emergency. They could be oblivious to that if they're very focused. So in this case, it wouldn't really be a negative way to describe someone because it's like they're so focused on one thing, they are not caring or not noticing other things because they're oblivious. Now, sometimes we use this as a negative adjective. If someone just seems to not be observant and they don't notice problems, they're not willing to help out because they just seem like they don't know what's going on, you could say they look absolutely oblivious over there. Perplexing. Perplexing.
Very perplexing situation.
If something is perplexing, it's confusing and very difficult to understand. Oftentimes, if you buy a piece of furniture online and it comes with a lot of different parts, the directions might be a bit perplexing because it's hard to tell which size screw they're talking about, which piece of wood they're talking about. It can be quite perplexing to try to assemble a piece of furniture, especially from places like IKEA. So if you have a problem that's very confusing, you can use this advanced word perplexing to describe the situation. Pragmatic. Pragmatic.
Prudent, pragmatic.
If someone is pragmatic, they are very realistic about a situation. If you take a pragmatic way of solving a problem, it means you try to do it the way that is best recommended. You don't try to do anything crazy. If you describe a person as pragmatic, it means they always do just a very reasonable thing. They don't like to spend a lot of money on useless things or very fancy things. They're just very reasonable. It's a really good quality to be pragmatic. Precarious. Precarious.
But it is precarious.
If something is described as precarious, it is unstable and risky. So you will often hear this word in writing, precarious, if there is kind of a risky situation that we don't know how it's going to turn out. Maybe someone has been invited to 2 birthday parties that are at the same exact time. It can be kind of a precarious situation because you won't want to offend one person by going to the other person's birthday party. Of course, hopefully you can make both of their parties work, but it can be kind of precarious if you can't go to the same one. So it's kind of risky to figure out the situation. If you were climbing a ladder and the ladder started to wobble, you would be in a very precarious or risky and unstable situation. Resilient. Resilient.
Very resilient.
If someone or something is resilient, it is able to recover very quickly. Sometimes we describe people or businesses as financially resilient if they can have a difficult time. Maybe a big accident happens and they have to spend a lot of money, or maybe a business has to close for a bit, but they can still survive financially. We can say they are resilient because they are able to recover and do well despite the difficulty. Spontaneous. Spontaneous.
Spontaneous.
If you do something spontaneously, it means it happens very quickly without planning it. You can also use the word impulsive for this as well. If you take a spontaneous trip to the beach, it means you just wake up one day and maybe you ask your friend, hey, do you want to go to the beach with me? And you guys just go. You didn't plan it or think about it in advance. A lot of people like to be spontaneously romantic. So maybe they show up at home with flowers and they say, these are for you, my wife. And your wife says, what's the occasion? Is it my birthday or our anniversary? Nope, just spontaneous. That means just for no reason, impulsively, you decided to be spontaneously romantic. The last word is uncanny. Uncanny.
Uncanny.
If something is uncanny, it's strange and mysterious. Some people have an uncanny way to predict the future. So that means they make predictions, they say what they think is going to happen, and it's very strange and mysterious because they are oftentimes correct. Sometimes if 2 people are thinking the same things without discussing it with one another, and then they say it out loud and they happen to be thinking about the same thing, it just seems strange and mysterious. You could be like, it is absolutely uncanny. Now, it's important to have some context when you're learning English. I want you to imagine that a close friend or a close relative, maybe your sister, your brother, your mom, or your dad, have asked you to take care of something while they are on vacation or they're out of town. Let's say they asked you to take care of their house, or let's say they asked you to take care of their children. If you want to show that you have no doubt in your own abilities to take care of this thing, you can say, I can handle this. I can handle this, no problem.
I can handle this.
Or if someone is starting to doubt whether or not you can handle something or you can take over responsibilities, you can say, I've got this under control.
I've got everything under control.
It means that what you're doing is working, it's going well, everything is under control, nothing is out of control or chaotic. I've got this under control. Let's say someone at work asks you if you can handle a project or you can handle a job. You can say, I am confident in my abilities. I am confident in my abilities. This just shows that you know that your skills are good enough to do this job. Now, this next phrase can come off as being rude, so you do need to be careful. But if someone says, do you know how to do that? You can say, I know what I'm doing.
I know what I'm doing.
Now, if somebody is trying to help you and you're trying to shoo them off, you don't need their help, you can say, I know what I'm doing. This is considered rude, but you can say, oh, I know what I'm doing. This means you've either done this thing before, you've rehearsed this, or you know exactly how the process goes. I know what I'm doing. If you want to show someone that you have been planning and preparing for a job, a project, or a task, you can say, I'm fully prepared for this. Maybe someone has given you a really difficult job at work. You could say, I've actually studied how to do this before. I've practiced. I'm fully prepared for this. Now, maybe someone has warned you that a job or a task might be difficult. Maybe you are going to take care of your relative's 2 dogs, and your relative might say, these dogs can be a little bit challenging. They can be hard to handle. Sometimes they don't listen. Sometimes they can run off. You can say, I am up for the challenge. I'm up for the challenge. If you want to show that you're eager and ready, say, I'm up for the challenge.
I'm up for the challenge.
If you want to say that you have made a decision and you think that you have made the correct decision and you're reassuring someone, you can say, I trust my judgment. Or you can say, I trust my judgment. I know it's going to work out.
You must trust my judgment, Your Highness.
Again, if someone gives you something very difficult to do, especially at work, you can say, I'm ready to take this on. This shows that you're ready to take on more responsibility or more work. I'm ready to take this on. If you want to show that you're confident even in a challenging situation where other people have given up, you can say, this is within my reach, or you can say, this is within our reach. This means success is within your reach. It means you can do it. You're very close. We're really close to our goal. It's within our reach. And finally, if you want to just quickly, informally tell someone that you can handle something, you can do the job, they don't need to worry, say, I've got it covered. I've got it covered. Don't worry.
It's okay. I've got it covered.
Now that we've talked about showing confidence in yourself and showing other people that you are confident and they should trust you, let's talk about showing confidence in a situation or showing confidence that a situation will be successful. Let's think about your work or your job. Let's say you've been planning for a project for many months, and now it's time to see if your plan will work. You've given everyone different responsibilities, and you are sure that you've been planning and it will work. Let's talk about some phrases you can use to show your confidence. You can tell someone, don't stress. Don't stress, this is going to go well. Don't stress.
Hey, don't stress. Don't stress.
Don't stress can sometimes be kind of annoying for people to hear because they can't really help be stressed or be worried or anxious. But you should at least know the phrase, say, don't stress, don't worry. If you want to say that everything's going to be successful and you are believing in that, you can say, I'm sure everything will work out.
I want to make sure everything works out, Ryan.
Especially if you have a friend that's very worried about a problem that they have and you just want to offer some encouragement or some advice, show your confidence and say, I'm sure everything will work out. If everything works out, it means in the end, everything will be happy and everything will be worry-free. I'm confident that this will go smoothly. When you say that something is going to go smoothly, it means there are going to be no problems, no issues. Everything will go as the plan says it should go. We describe that as smoothly. Everything will go smoothly. This shows your confidence again in the plan that you have formed. If you want to compliment the plan and let everyone know that everything is going well, you can say everything is going according to plan. This is a very common phrase. It will go according to plan. Everything here is going according to plan. Nice job, everyone.
Everything is going according to plan. Oh.
If someone asks you if you think that a plan is going to work, you can say, I'm positive we'll get great results. I'm positive means you are very certain. You are very sure of something. I'm completely positive we will get good results. This means you really believe in the plan that you have. Again, let's use this phrase, it's all under control, to reassure someone that a plan or a situation is going how it should go and that there's not going to be any big errors or any big problems.
It's all under control.
If someone is doubting your choices or your own plan, you can say, I have no doubts about it. I have no doubts about it. It will work.
No doubt about it.
Show that you're confident and say, we'll make this happen. This means that you are willing to put in some hard work and you believe in everyone's abilities to make a goal happen or to achieve success. I'll make this happen. We'll make this happen. If you want to show someone that you have been planning very thoroughly, you can say, I've thought this through. To think something through means to plan every detail. I've thought this through.
I've thought this through.
And make sure to tell someone there's no reason to worry. There's no reason to worry.
There's no reason to worry.
Let's talk about some phrases that you can use to confidently respond in a conversation to someone. The first confident response that you can use is absolutely.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think that the plan will work. Absolutely. This means you completely agree and you are also confident in the plan. You could also say, instead of absolutely, without a doubt. Remember, you don't always want to say the same thing in English. You don't want to always sound repetitive. It can just help show off your fluency and your different vocabulary by saying either absolutely or without a doubt.
Without a doubt.
You can say, I completely agree, or I couldn't agree more. This means you completely agree. These two phrases mean the exact same, but again, it's about varying that vocabulary. I completely agree. I couldn't agree more.
I completely agree.
Your boss might be telling you a plan or telling you how the responsibilities in the company are going to go, and you could say, that's right. Or you could even say, that's exactly right. You can also say, that sounds perfect.
That sounds perfect.
Sometimes I just say perfect, and this conveys a lot of confidence as well in English, just to say perfect. You can use the idiom to be on board with something to mean that you very much agree. I'm on board with that. That means you agree completely.
You on board with that?
Make sure to compliment someone's idea when you think it's a good idea and you want to share that good idea. You could say, that's a great idea. I know we can do it. And if you really want to go over the top and show that you agree with a plan and believe in it, you can say, I have total confidence in the plan. There are so many times in life where we don't know whether we're making the correct decision, but it's important to at least be confident in the decision that you make, especially if you want others around to believe in your plan and to believe in your decision making. Let's talk about those phrases that can help you project confidence in your decisions. You could say, this is the right choice.
It is the right choice, sweetie.
And if you want to say you're not going to think about an issue or a problem anymore, you can say, I've made up my mind. This means you are not going to change your decision or change your mind. I've made up my mind. If you want to emphasize that you still agree with the decision that you made in the past, you can say, I stand by my decision.
I stand by my decision.
So you can stand by a person or a decision. That means you support either the person or you support your decision. I still stand by my decision. This means I still support my decision and I think it was the correct one. A course of action is the plan that you choose. You can say, I trust this course of action. Or you could even say, I trust the course of action that you have chosen. This means you trust the plan will work out successfully. I'm committed to this path. Sometimes we refer to a plan or a series of decisions as a path. I'm committed to this path. This means you're not going to change your decision here. I'm certain this is the best way forward. This is the exact same thing as saying, I'm certain that this is the best decision. But instead, sometimes we say, I'm certain this is the best way forward.
But this is the best way forward.
If you want to tell someone that we should pursue this plan, you can say, let's move forward with it. Let's move forward with it. I'm confident in this strategy, and this decision was well thought out. When we want to compliment the plan or the decisions that you have made or someone else has made, you can say it was well thought out. This means everything was thought of. There was no details or problems that were missed. This is potentially the most important topic of today's lesson. It's encouraging others to be confident in themselves. You can be a good teammate by using all of the phrases on this next list to encourage others that you are confident in them and they should be confident in themselves. Of course, you can just say, you've got this. You've got this. This just shows that you are confident in their abilities to achieve something or to do something.
You've got this.
And this can be used in the most casual settings to the most professional settings. You've got this. I believe in you. This means you believe in their abilities and their talents.
I believe in you.
You're more than capable. This means that not only can you do it, you are very skilled and very talented. You are more than capable to do this job. Now, be careful with this phrase because it can mean that you are doubting when someone says they can't do something, like they're just being lazy. But you can say, you are so capable. You can do this. We're going to succeed together. I know you'll do great. Don't worry, you're doing well.
Don't worry, you're doing great.
And remember, it's just so important to reassure people that you're working with or that you're getting along with in life because your reassurance can really inspire a lot of confidence, and that's what makes a good leader. Trust yourself. You've got this. If you want to tell someone that they should not doubt any of the decisions that they're making, you can tell them, trust yourself. And this is a really powerful phrase. You're stronger than you think. Let's make this happen.
Let's make this happen, people.
If you are in the wrong, you are guilty or responsible for a mistake. Oftentimes, when two people have an argument over who made a mistake, one person will eventually admit they're in the wrong. This means they say it's their fault. This is a common phrase as well. Admit that you are in the wrong. This means that you admit or you say that you did break the rules and you're just being honest saying that you are in the wrong or responsible for a mistake. If you are in the wrong, you definitely should apologize.
I'm in the wrong.
Oftentimes, if we want to say that we promise to do something, even if there are circumstances that almost prevent us from doing it, we say that we will do something no matter what.
No matter what.
So when we say this phrase, no matter what, it means regardless of the difficulties or the circumstances. Maybe you want to promise that you will help your friend move on Saturday, and you really want to promise them, so you'll say, I will help you move Saturday no matter what. So this might mean that even if your car breaks down, or even if you have plans that come up that sound more fun than helping your friend move, you are very committed and you're making a very good promise to them. Sometimes we want to say that no matter the circumstances or, it just always feels like something happened. Like we say, every time I want to go outside and enjoy the day, no matter what, it rains. So this just means like it feels like it always rains, even if the circumstances are a day that you want to enjoy, it just feels like it always happens. So no matter what means it always happens or it's something is committed to happening. Another phrase that goes along with no matter what is no matter what I try. So this means you try or attempt a lot of different methods to get something done or to solve a problem. And it feels like no matter what you try or how many things that you try, it just is not working. My son has a toy car, and no matter what I try to do to fix this car, the wheels are always falling off of it. I can try gluing them, screwing them on. I've tried all sorts of different super glues to keep the wheels on. No matter what, it just keeps breaking. And I think that's because my son is a little rough and tough on his toy. Have you ever been out enjoying your day and suddenly you realize or you start to think about the fact that you left your oven on at home or you left something else hot on at home and it makes you worry a lot? This is a pretty common experience. One phrase that we can use in this situation when a thought suddenly comes in your brain, it kind of hits you, is you can say, it dawned on me. So I was out enjoying my day and it dawned on me that I forgot to turn off my curling iron. So this means the thought just popped into my head. When we say that something dawns on us, it means we realize something or we think about something kind of revolutionary or a big idea or just something that we totally forgot earlier. If you've ever been in public and someone comes up to you and they say your name, they say, oh, hi, Kate, how are you doing? You might start talking to them and you think to yourself, I have no idea who this person is. But then during the conversation, they mention something about the time you met before, and it will dawn on you who they are and where you met them. And this has happened to me. I forget people all the time, but it dawns on you in the middle of the conversation who they are, and hopefully you can recover and make the conversation more polite and friendly after that.
Dawned on me.
There are a ton of ways in English to say that you are annoyed or irritated. Here is another one. If you want to say you're annoyed or irritated, you can say that you are irked.
She's irked.
She's irked.
Now, this is more of a slang or informal phrase. If you want to say that you're annoyed, for instance, maybe someone you work with is always late and you plan a meeting with them and they're late to the meeting. You can say, it really irked me when they were late to the meeting, or it really irks me how they're always late. So irked means almost the exact same as annoyed or irritated. It's a pretty negative word to say that you're irked with someone or something. Maybe there's a sound in your room or in your house that prevents you from sleeping because it's so irritating. You could say, the sound of my faucet leaking really irks me. So it annoys you or irritates you. In English, there are also so many ways to say calm down, take it easy, relax, slow down. One really common way we say this, a really good informal phrase that you'll hear every day in English, is, hey, slow your roll. This means stop going so fast, stop rushing something. If you just relax and go slow, it will be much more calming.
Literally slow your roll.
Maybe someone is excited because you said you're going to plan a trip with them, and they say, I gotta go buy tickets right now. I gotta start packing. And you say, hey, slow your roll. I have to figure out if I can get vacation from work or some days off before we can buy tickets and plan this. So this just means relax. We have to slow down the process. Don't be so eager to start the process. Slow your roll. Maybe if you have kids and they come in the house and they start grabbing all this food, and you might say, hey, slow your roll. We're about to eat some dinner soon. So don't just grab all this food and eat because I'm going to serve you dinner and I still want you to be hungry. Slow your roll means relax, calm down, slow down the process. To slip through the cracks.
How did this slip through the cracks?
This phrase is used to say that a problem was overlooked or neglected. In hospitals, it's really common for health problems to sometimes slip through the cracks. You have to be very careful when you're a doctor or a nurse, and you have to constantly communicate, or patients can have a health problem that just doesn't get communicated, or they can be having some symptoms that the doctor does not know about because the communication was bad. And if a problem slips through the cracks in a hospital, it can be life or death. And another way that we use this phrase very commonly is when students are in a school with teachers. If a teacher doesn't realize that a student is not being successful, they're not actually learning some of the concepts, they are slipping through the cracks. That means they'll pass on to the next grade and they won't have actually gotten smarter. So it's a problem. They're being neglected if they slip through the cracks. We can also use this phrase to slip through the cracks when a problem just goes completely unnoticed. And then we want to say, why wasn't that problem solved? Or why was that mistake not seen? We can just say, well, it just kind of slipped through the cracks. This just means it was such a small problem at the time that nobody noticed until it became a bigger problem. The next phrase that I want to teach you today is the phrase to check all the boxes. This phrase is used to say that something meets all of the requirements or the criteria. For instance, when we're going shopping for a house, we might say this house totally checks all the boxes. That means it has all of the things that you are really wanting to have in a house. Maybe you needed a certain number of bedrooms for your family. Maybe you're hoping to have a big bathtub and a big kitchen and a big yard. It checks all the boxes. Or if you're going house shopping and you really like the house, you really like the neighborhood, but you were hoping the house would maybe have more an updated feel to it, or it had nicer bedrooms, you could say the house doesn't quite check all of the boxes. This just means it does not meet all the criteria that you had in your head. If you want to say to someone that you need to work hard in order to meet all of the expectations and all of the criteria for a project, you can say, we really have to check all of the boxes on this one and work very carefully. It just means that you are not missing anything that needs to be done. Have you ever had one of those moments in life where you just feel so confident and so successful? In English, we have a phrase to describe this feeling. The phrase is riding high.
He's riding high.
When you feel like you're riding high, you just feel like everything is going correctly. It's going right in life. After my wedding, it was just such a fun time with all of my friends, my family. Everyone had the greatest time. I had gotten wedding gifts and we were going on our honeymoon. I was totally riding high. And another way we use this phrase in English sometimes, we're not talking about drugs or being intoxicated, is we say, we are on a high. This just means we're having a really good time. We feel like we're really successful. Things are going our way. They're going our way for us in life. So you can either say riding high or on a high. At first glance.
At first glance.
We use this phrase very commonly in English to say that at our first observation or the first time we look at something, it seems like one thing, but if you look at it further after first glance, it might be something else. For instance, I was at the park the other day with my children, and there was this woman there. She had red hair, and she had 2 young children with her as well with red hair. And so at first glance, I thought she was their mom. And I said, "Oh, how old are your kids?" And she said, "I'm actually the nanny," which means like the babysitter or the person who watches the kids. And I said, "Oh my gosh, I'm sorry to mistake you for the mom." She said, "No, I'm not a mom. I just happen to have red hair, just like the kids I watch all day." So at first glance, I thought she was the mom, but after asking her, she wasn't. It was a little bit awkward, but she said that it was a common mistake that other people make. So at first glance, you might think something and then you might be corrected later. When we're asked to solve a problem and we're an expert on something, we might take a look at the problem just very quickly. And without making our final judgment of the problem or saying, this is how you're actually going to solve it, we can just say what our thoughts are at first. We can say, at first glance, I think you might be looking at this problem. And when we say this, we mean that we want to study it a bit more before we actually can say exactly how to solve the problem, or we need to study it a bit more to be sure of how we solve the problem, but you're just giving your first guess by looking at it very quickly. And this is how we use the phrase at first glance. Another very similar phrase to at first glance is off the cuff.
Nothing off the cuff.
When we do something off the cuff, it just means that we didn't have any preparation or we didn't have a lot of thought going into it. We just did it very quickly because, it was just asked of us to do it right now. A really common way we use this phrase is we say, I'm just giving a speech off the cuff. That means you did not prepare for the speech that you had to give and you actually didn't know ahead of time that you were going to give the speech. Or maybe you did and you just didn't prepare, but it just means you're talking just out of your own brain. You don't have anything formally prepared for the speech. You're speaking off the cuff. Again, you might ask an expert some questions about a problem or a question that you have, and they might just be speaking off the cuff. This just means that they don't know a ton about the situation yet, but they're just giving their expert opinion without a lot of prepared thoughts. A phrase that I find very useful is the phrase to work somebody in. When you work someone or something into your schedule, this is commonly how the phrase is used, it means that you are going to try to make some time for something. Oftentimes, when you are going to somebody who provides a service, like maybe they give haircuts or they do nails or something and they have a busy schedule, and you ask them at the last minute, hey, do you have any time to do my hair today? It's really important. I have a big wedding this weekend or I have a big meeting and I want to look nice. They say, well, I am booked for the day. This means their schedule is completely full. But if I have some time, usually when I eat lunch, I can work you in. This just means that they can try to make a little bit of space in their schedule. Maybe if someone doesn't show up or if they just want to do your hair over their lunch break, they're working you into your schedule. Maybe it's important to you to start exercising, but you feel like you're really busy. You might say, I need to work in some time to exercise into my schedule. This just means you need to make some space, even though it's busy. You need to try to find a few minutes a day to exercise or go for a good walk. I recommend working in some time to study English into your schedule every day. A really common phrase that you might have heard English speakers use is, "It's harder than it sounds."
It's harder than it sounds.
So this phrase means that you can say something, you can say, find some time to study English every single day. That sounds very easy. Of course, you could just go watch a television show in English, or you could just watch a YouTube video or read a book in English. This sounds very easy, but it's harder than it sounds. Another way that we use this phrase is we say it's more difficult than it sounds. Of course, difficult and hard can mean exactly the same thing. Maybe your friend just lost their job and you say, well, maybe you should start your own business. Your friend might say, starting your own business is harder than it sounds. This means, you can just say that. It sounds easy to just say it, but to actually do it is more difficult. It takes a lot of time. So we use this phrase when we're just saying that somebody is saying something to us like it's easy, but we want to recognize or tell them that it actually is difficult. Do you have the guts to go skydiving? I certainly don't have the guts to do this, but a lot of people do. This phrase, to have the guts, it means to have the courage or to be brave enough to do something. And we can use this phrase, have the guts, in extreme examples like skydiving, or maybe just a smaller example like, do you have the guts to go ask this girl out on a date? This just means, are you brave enough and do you have the courage to do something? Guts in English is a slang word for courage. If you want to say that someone is really good at something and they've done it better right now than they've ever done it before, you can use this English phrase. The phrase is, you have outdone yourself.
They're planning to outdo themselves.
So the phrase is to outdo oneself. Really common way that we use this phrase is if there's someone who's cooking a meal, like a chef, and they're really, really good at cooking, and you've had a lot of good meals from them. You go to their house, you visit, and they make you the best food ever. You can say, you have really outdone yourself. This is a very polite comment to make. It's a really good compliment to give someone who is cooking food when you find their food really, really good. So oftentimes when people do really nice stuff for us, when we visit them, and they're just providing a lot of comfort for you, you can say, you have really outdone yourself. And if you are in a competition or you're at work and you think you've done a really good job, you could say, I've really outdone myself this time. This just means you have beaten your personal best. When you want to say that you need to focus on something closely or more intensely, you can say that you're going to zero in on it.
Hey, he zeroed in on something already.
For instance, if you are in school, in college, or university, it becomes the end of the semester and you really need to zero in on studying for your final examination. This means you need to stop doing other activities because these examinations are so important that you need to zero in and focus very hard. Another thing, if you're searching for something and you want to focus on just one thing or one area for it, you can use this phrase to zero in on something. When there is a crime and there is a detective or a police officer searching for the person who did it, they might start to get some clues that help them zero in on a person that they think did the crime, or as we call them, the suspect. So if they are pretty sure that someone did it, they'll start zeroing in on this person, trying to find more evidence that they did the crime. A really common way that we say that somebody has followed the rules or the guidelines or they have been very honest is to say that they have played by the rules.
And play by the rules.
At work, it's very important to play by the rules. This means not lie, cheat, or steal. Now, sometimes when you're in a competition with someone, they can do some things that are dishonest to try to win, and that means that they did not play by the rules. Some people use this phrase, hey, we don't play by the rules, to mean that they don't do things in the conventional or the normal way that the thing is done. They try to do something that is revolutionary or different in order to accomplish the task. And a lot of times when people use this phrase in this way, it doesn't mean that they're trying to be dishonest. It means that they're just not trying to do everything the same way or by the rules that have been established for a long time. So for this phrase, it doesn't actually have to be very formal rules. You can either be talking about just the conventional way that something is done to meet rules, or you can just mean that someone is being honest and playing by the rules. When you want to say that someone has planned something very thoroughly and carefully, you can say that they have left nothing to chance.
You leave nothing to chance, huh?
This, again, is a really common phrase in English to use when someone is just very meticulous and they want nothing to go wrong in a very important plan. A lot of times when people plan their wedding days, they will plan, when the pictures will be, how they'll be arriving there, exactly what they'll be wearing, exactly who will be bringing their grandma to the wedding. They do not leave anything to chance. This just means they try to think of every detail so that everything happens correctly and everything is good on the day and nothing just sporadically happens that ruins the day or, creates a problem. So they leave nothing to chance. If you want to tell someone to be very prepared for something, make sure to tell them, do not leave anything to chance. This just means actually think through all the details of the plan. A phrase that is sort of similar to leaving nothing to chance is the phrase, leave no stone unturned.
Leave no stone unturned.
And this phrase is used more in the instance of searching for something. It means you need to be very thorough in searching for something. It's almost like you're looking through a bunch of rocks in the woods. You wouldn't want to skip a rock or have a stone unturned. So this is a phrase that we use. You'll have to let me know if you have a similar phrase in your language as well. This idiom, leave no stone unturned, I think is pretty universal. Maybe someone in your family has a rare health problem and you have gone to every expert that you can find. You have gone to Google many times and searched for an answer to the problem. You have left no stone unturned. This means you have searched everywhere for a solution to the problem. And if you're looking in your house for an object or you're looking around somewhere where you think you have lost it, you can use this idiom as well to say that you have searched very thoroughly. I lost my phone yesterday and I went back to the park. I left no stone unturned looking for it. This means you were very thorough and you looked everywhere it could possibly be. To stay on track.
Stay on track.
If you want to say that someone is remaining focused and they're remaining on schedule, you can say that they are staying on track. You can think about a running race that's on a track or a circular running path. And if someone stays on track, they will eventually get to the finish line. So that's kind of the idea of where this idiom comes from. Sometimes when you're trying to finish a project at work, there might be some setbacks, but it's important to try to stay on track with the schedule that you created so that you can still finish the project on time. Maybe you say to your family, okay, we need to clean up the house today. And as you're cleaning, someone in your family finds some old pictures and you guys are all looking at old pictures and your old photo albums, which can be really, really fun, but you need to put them away and stay on track. Otherwise, the house is not going to get clean for the day. You guys aren't focused. You need to say to your family, let's stay on track. Let's keep cleaning. We can look at these after. If you're familiar with the sport of baseball, this next idiom might make sense to you. The phrase is out of left field.
A little out of left field, but I think it's terrific.
When something is extremely unexpected or surprising, we say it's out of left field. Typically in baseball, we say the left outfield is a less active position and there's not as many balls going out there. So it's far out and we just don't expect a lot to be happening there. So this idiom just translates to mean that something comes, out of nowhere. You're not expecting it. You're really surprised by it. You don't really have a reason to why it happened. We say it's out of left field. Maybe your friend who does not even have a boyfriend or a husband, they come to you and they say, I'm pregnant. You would say, wow, that was out of left field. I was not expecting that. And that would be very, very surprising. You can also use this for very pleasant surprises, like maybe someone, brought you warm cookies. You can say, well, it was so unexpected and out of left field. Thank you so much. That means it's not your birthday or any sort of celebration. They just did something nice for completely no reason, it seems like. A force to be reckoned with.
Indeed, a force to be reckoned with.
This phrase means that you should not deal with something that is really influential or powerful very lightly, and you should be very prepared if you are going to deal with them or you're going to try to fight against them. This is a really common way we use this phrase. The phrase is a force to be reckoned with. The phrase reckon with something means to prepare for it. Oftentimes when we use this phrase, that is a force to be reckoned with, means that it is a really powerful thing or a really influential thing. If you're going to try to fight against it, you need to be very prepared and don't think that it's just easy. The American military is a force to be reckoned with. Of course, we have more military than anyone else in the world. So people try not to reckon with the military because, they're very powerful. We can just describe individuals who are very hardworking or powerful as well as a force to be reckoned with. If you want to say that someone will fight for their ideas or their opinions no matter what, and we notice that they are very hardworking and powerful, we can say you are a force to be reckoned with. This just means that if anyone wants to debate with you, they should really be prepared because you are very hardworking and powerful. A great informal phrase to say that something is of the highest quality is to say it's top notch.
Top notch.
If you want to recommend a hotel or a restaurant to someone and you want to tell them that it's really good food, it's in really high quality and everything is good about it, you can say it is top notch. Or you could say the food is top notch or the service is top notch. You're basically saying it's of the highest quality. You can also compliment someone's work or performance by saying your work was top notch or your performance was top notch. If you want to say that something is not of the highest quality, but it's pretty good, you can say it's perfectly fine. The weather today was perfectly fine. This means it wasn't too hot, it wasn't too cold. It wasn't the nicest day ever. Maybe it wasn't a day where you want to go swimming or you want to spend a ton of time outside, but if you say it's perfectly good, that means it's okay. If you want to say it's perfectly fine, it means there is nothing really wrong with it. Someone might tell you it's perfectly fine to ask for help if you need it. This means there is no problem with asking for help. Or maybe someone has you over to their house and they say it's perfectly fine if you want to leave your shoes on. It's not perfectly fine in my house, but for some people, it is perfectly fine. They don't really care if you leave your shoes on when you come into their house. Another really informal and kind of funny phrase to use when you want to tell someone to calm down, relax, or slow down is to say, cool your jets.
Oh, cool your jets.
So we think about a jet or an airplane and, they're very hot and they're ready to go. The engines are. You can say, cool your jets to mean, turn them off. Don't be so ready to go because we have to just calm down for a minute. Maybe your friend is asking you, are you on your way? Are you coming? You might say, cool your jets. I have to take a shower and eat breakfast before I come over to your house. This just means relax. I'll be there soon on my own time. So be careful about how you use this phrase because it could be offensive if someone is eager and they might find it offensive if you tell them to calm down. If you want to tell someone that they need to spend their time and their energy on something, you can tell them to channel their energy into that thing. For instance, when your children are crying and complaining, you might say, why don't you channel your energy into doing something more productive, like reading a book or going to play with some Legos or doing an art project. This just means instead of spending your energy complaining or in a negative way, channel your energy into something positive and productive. Sometimes when people have tragedies in their life, they will channel their energy into doing something productive for society, like starting a charity or honoring someone who has died. They'll channel their grief, their energy into, doing good things for other people to honor that person. So when we tell someone to channel their energy into something, we're just saying that they need to try to have their effort or their enthusiasm into something else rather than something negative or unproductive. Some people say that the show The Simpsons is dead on in their predictions. If you haven't heard about this, Google The Simpsons theories. They have predicted a lot of things on their show that have actually happened later in real life. So we use the phrase dead on to mean accurate. This is an informal phrase that we use a lot of times in English. Maybe you are in an archery competition with a bow and arrow and you hit the bullseye. You could say that shot was dead on. It was very accurate. If you want to say that two things are completely different and not even comparable, you can say they are like apples and oranges. This idiom is pretty funny to use.
Apples and oranges here, Sheldon.
So American football and what the rest of the world calls football is like apples and oranges. They're not the same at all. Just because we call them the same thing does not mean they're comparable. So this is just giving your opinion like they're not the same at all. They're like apples and oranges. Of course, they're both fruits, but they taste completely different and they feel completely different. Some people prefer Coke to Pepsi, and they like Coca-Cola so much that they say Coke and Pepsi are like apples and oranges. You can't even compare them. Or some people might like Pepsi more than Coca-Cola, and they might say the same exact thing, just with Pepsi instead of Coca-Cola. So if you want to say that two things are not of the same quality or just can't be compared even though they're similar, you can say they're apples and oranges. If you want to say that there was a moment that was very awkward and embarrassing, you can use this phrase cringeworthy. Maybe you go to a stand-up comedy show and the comedian is telling jokes and nobody is laughing. You could say that performance was absolutely cringeworthy. It was very uncomfortable. Or maybe there is a moment in a meeting at work where someone starts crying and getting very emotional and everyone just feels very awkward and uncomfortable about it. You could say it's kind of cringeworthy. Now, this phrase is definitely associated with being a negative thing, so be careful how you use it. If you see something that is really something that someone would be interested in, you can say it is up their alley. This is an interesting, kind of funny phrase that we use to say that something is really suited to someone's interests. For instance, you might have someone in your life who really likes anime, and you see that the movie theater in town is showing some anime films. You can say that looks right up your alley. This means that it suits your interests very well.
Right up your alley.
Do you have a crush on someone?
Crush.
If you have a crush on someone, it means that you have someone you are interested in romantically, but you have not told them yet. So you might be a female and you might say, I have a crush on Michael. This means Michael doesn't know it yet. He maybe could guess. You haven't told him, but you seem to kind of like him. So typically when two people have a crush on one another, it means they like each other and they're probably going to start to date if one of the people make the first move.
You never make the first move.
So what does it mean to make the first move? This is an idiom that means that one person will kind of be forward with the other. They will initiate a romantic relationship. So they'll say, hey, do you want to go on a date with me? Or, hey, I really like you. So this is the first move, as we say in English. And this is just a common idiom that means who is going to be the first person to initiate a relationship or a conversation even. Do you know what it means to fall for someone? This idiom means that you start to like someone romantically. I didn't want to like them, but I really fell for them. This means that whatever the person has done has just really made you think that they're a kind and loving person and you want to have a romantic partnership with them.
Maybe someday you'll fall for someone who's healthy.
Another great idiom for relationships is to be head over heels for someone.
You're head over heels.
So this phrase, you can say this, I am head over heels for my husband. Or if you are not married to someone or even in a relationship with someone, you could say, I am just head over heels for this person. Or they are both head over heels for one another. It means they are deeply, deeply in love. A really common question that we ask in English is, do you believe in love at first sight?
It was love at first sight.
If you see someone and literally from the second that you see them and meet them, you are in love with them, we say it's love at first sight. So this just describes the feeling that even without getting to know someone, you just know that you love them and you want to be with them in a relationship. And oftentimes, some people say, no, I don't believe in love at first sight, which means that you don't think that you can fall in love with someone immediately. You have to get to know them first. Do you believe in love at first sight? Let me know in the comments. Another relationship question that we commonly ask in English is, do you believe in soulmates?
As your soulmate.
So we describe someone's soul as, everything that makes up their being, not physically, just, their emotions, their personality, things like that. So if someone is your soulmate, you believe that, whatever it might be, the forces of the universe, religion, they have destined you to be together with this person, and this person is absolutely meant for you. Some people believe that their soulmate isn't someone who they're romantically involved with. They think maybe their friend could be their soulmate, or I've heard some people say their dog is their soulmate. That just means this person was meant for you. Everything about them and yourself is just perfect together. Dating, going steady, and exclusive. These 3 phrases can all mean the same thing, that 2 people are officially in a relationship and they want everyone else to know. So I would say out of these 3, the most common phrase is to say, yeah, we're dating. This means we're together, we're not seeing other people.
No dating.
Yeah,
No dating.
Now, going steady is a really outdated phrase, but you will still hear old people in the United States say that 2 people are going steady, and this means the exact same thing as dating. They just are officially in a relationship. They like one another.
It's like going steady, going steady.
And the last phrase you will hear a lot, and you will even hear it in movies and television shows. When people say that they are exclusive, it means they are officially dating. They're not dating other people. They're exclusive to one another. So they won't be, talking to other men or talking to other women. They only are with one another. 2 important phrasal verbs that you need to know for romantic relationships are, of course, to break up and to make up.
Break up.
When you break up, you end a romantic relationship. We can also have friend breakups, which means, we don't agree with our friends anymore. Maybe we had a big fight or a big falling out, which is a really big fight, and we just don't like each other anymore. So then if we become friends again or we become romantic partners again, we make up. This means that we apologize. We say, I'm sorry, let's get back together, let's make up. So breakup and makeup are opposites. Breakup means ending the relationship, and makeup means starting the relationship again after apologizing.
No making up?
Now, many people have probably watched the show Friends that are watching this because it's one of the most common ways to learn English is by watching the television show Friends. Of course, you remember Ross and Rachel. They were on a break.
We were on a break! We were on a break!
We were on a break.
I don't actually hear people say this phrase a lot anymore when it comes to relationships. But in the episode where they are on a break and, they're arguing whether it was a break or they broke up, it means that you have basically decided to pause your relationship, whether it be because you had a small fight, but it doesn't mean that you are officially ending the relationship. If you are married to someone and you are thinking about getting divorced or not being married to one another again, you might separate. So you can say, I'm separated, which means you are not legally divorced. Your marriage has not ended in the eyes of the government, but you are not living with them anymore and you're not really romantically involved anymore. Sometimes people separate and don't legally get divorced, but then if they make up, they can get back together and continue on their marriage. So separating and divorce are kind of in the same world of phrases in English, and usually if you separate, you do get divorced if you were married before. Let's talk about some more happy phrases for relationships. When you get engaged to someone, it means you plan on marrying them.
Engaged.
Engaged.
In the United States, the most common way in relationships that people get engaged is the man gets down on one knee, opens the ring box, and says, "Will you marry me?" And if the woman says yes, they are engaged. Of course, relationships are all different today, so this isn't always how it works. And some people are even more casual than this. They just decide one day that they're going to get married. And before they actually get married, they say that they are engaged. I'm engaged to my fiance.
The fiance.
Let's talk about these two words that we borrowed from the French language, fiance and fiancé. And if you're wondering whether or not these two words have different pronunciations, the answer is no. When a man and a woman are engaged to be married, they will both call each other their fiancé. And I don't even think people are too worried about the spelling of fiancé in English, because of course it's different in French when you're talking about the woman and the man when you spell fiancé. So for the time before you actually have your wedding and your wedding ceremony, you can call your future husband or your future wife your fiance. And this is only if you guys are engaged. You have already announced that you are planning to get married. When two people finally get married in the United States, for a short period after they are married, typically about a year, we say that two people are newlyweds. This means that they are recently married.
Newlyweds?
Well, you guys are newlyweds. This means you have gotten married probably in about the last year. There's no official time period for being newlyweds, but this is typically the amount of time that we call two people have just gotten married newlyweds. Maybe you get some new neighbors that move in an apartment next to you or a house next to you, and they have just gotten married. You can say they are newlyweds. Now, if you are single, which means you are not in a relationship, you are not really even talking to anyone or married, you might want to get on the apps. This is a new phrase. I am too old to have ever gotten on the apps. I got married too long ago. But basically, it means that you are on dating apps. So oftentimes when people break up with a boyfriend or break up with a girlfriend, people will tell them, you got to get on the apps. This means that you have to start looking to date by using dating apps. And I'm not sure if it's the best way to meet someone, but it seems to be pretty common nowadays to meet on a dating app. Let's talk about some ways to describe relationship issues, because there are so many issues when it comes to dating, being married, being in relationships. If you want to say that a relationship between two people is in trouble because maybe they've been arguing a lot and having difficulties, you can say their relationship is on the rocks, or you could even say my marriage is on the rocks. It just means it is in trouble. When people are in the dating world, they start dating, and oftentimes, well, I'm not sure if it happens often, but it does definitely happen to people where one person in the relationship just completely cuts off contact. They decide not to talk to the other person anymore, and they don't even give them a reason why. This is called ghosting. So to ghost someone means to not talk to them at all anymore, like you become a ghost basically, invisible, and you do not give them a reason why. And of course, this is very, very unethical to do to someone. You should never ghost them because it leaves them with a lot of questions, like if they did something wrong, and it's very hurtful to ghost someone or just basically stop talking to them and not giving them a reason. Oftentimes, when we want to talk about a relationship where two people are just not right for one another, they have just not treated each other very well, they've done a lot of bad things to one another, you can say that their relationship is toxic. It's just bad for both people involved.
And it was like a very toxic relationship.
If you know a couple and they're just always arguing and it's just kind of exhausting to be around, you can say they have a toxic relationship. If we call a person individually toxic as well, it might mean that they, again, start a lot of problems, they argue a lot, they are just not a nice person. A very, very complicated situation that we have in relationships sometimes is a love triangle. So this would be when there are three people involved in kind of a toxic relationship drama.
Love triangle drama.
So maybe there is a girl and she loves a man. She's dating him. but then maybe she starts to like another guy as well, and she can't choose between which person she wants to be with. And they're both kind of getting mad at her, and they're getting mad at one another. There's 3 people. It makes a triangle. And in this situation, whether it's, 2 men, 1 woman, or 2 women and 1 man, we call it a love triangle. Oh, you're in a love triangle right now. This just means that there's one person that can't decide which person they're going to date and be with. And of course, if someone is in a relationship and they are, going outside of the relationship, whether it means they are, having an emotional affair or a physical affair, it means they are cheating. If you are cheating on someone, it is very, very wrong. There are more formal ways you can say that someone is cheating. You can say they are not being faithful. You can say there is infidelity going on, meaning there's a main relationship, between a husband and a wife. If someone is having some infidelity, it means they are trying to, date and interact with other people romantically outside of the relationship. So cheating and infidelity is really bad. It's, not a good thing to do in life. You should always be faithful and committed in your relationships. Let's move on to one of my favorite topics we're talking about today, romantic gestures. Of course, one of the most innocent, cute, romantic gestures is holding hands. We often say when children are young and they're kind of, in love, but they don't really know a lot what it means to be in a relationship or be committed to someone. They're just very young. We call it puppy love, meaning they love each other right now, but they probably won't always forever. So maybe they'll hold hands if they are having puppy love. If someone is trying to express that they are interested in dating someone or being romantic with them, and, they're laughing a lot and they're making jokes, or maybe they're poking fun at the other person just to kind of interact with them, we call that flirting. So to flirt with someone just means to interact with them to try to get their attention or, be cute with them romantically.
Flirting? You think I'm flirting with you? I am not flirting with you!
We talked about getting married, getting engaged, being fiancés, but when someone is going to ask another person to marry them, we have a phrase that is meaning this. We say they are going to pop the question.
Oh, I popped the question.
Do you think that he's going to pop the question to her? This means ask her if she wants to marry him. The question is, will you marry me? So when we say pop the question, we mean, are they going to propose or try to become engaged? When one person is really trying to impress another person, really make them fall in love, they're doing really romantic things, like maybe they're buying them gifts, taking them to nice dinners, and just saying nice words to them, like, you look beautiful. We have an idiom that means they are trying to, get them really interested and in love with them. They are trying to sweep them off their feet. So a lot of times in movies, the main character gets swept off their feet, meaning they fall in love really quick with another character who's very kind and romantic to them. One idiom that I always like to quiz foreigners on is, what does it mean to tie the knot?
Tying the knot.
In English, it means to finally get married. So when did you guys tie the knot? This means when did you actually get married? So to tie the knot means the same as to get married, or even just to have a wedding. We're going to tie the knot next summer. And then another way that we playfully refer to weddings is the day that you say I do. And when we're saying wedding vows in English, in the United States especially, we ask the person, do you, vow to love them forever? Do you vow to do this, do that? And the person is supposed to say, I do. This is the most common way that you agree to getting married during a very formal wedding ceremony in the United States. I do.
I do.
I do.
There are so many terms of endearment in every language. These are just little names, little cute nicknames that you call your partner. So let's go over a few in English. Promise me not to laugh. There are people that say these names, whether they seem silly or, very serious. I just want to make sure you guys know all of these and know that people really do use these, even though some of them seem kind of ridiculous. So we, of course, can start with darling, honey, sugar, all these sweet names. We can even say sweetie, babe, baby. Sometimes we even just say, this is my love right here. My love, can you come over here? These are all very common terms of endearment. Some that seem a little funny, but people really do say are snookums, come here snookums, or Pookie. There's a really common couple on social media that call each other Pookie, and it's kind of cute, but like it's kind of weird at the same time. I'm sure you have these same sort of names in your language that just sounds silly, but people really do call one another when they're very in love. Let's talk about physical attraction in your relationships. We're going to keep it PG today because, I don't want this video to only be for adults. It can be for everyone. So first, let's talk about a hug. Of course, you know what a hug is. It's an embrace. You just hug someone. We often talk about cuddling or snuggling with someone that we love. Of course, you can cuddle or snuggle with a child or even just a friend as well. It just means you kind of sit warmly next to them. Maybe you're watching a movie or just hanging out on the couch, just being next to each other. You're cuddling or you're snuggling. Did you know in English, we either say that people are kissing or they're French kissing? So a kiss would just mean a simple kiss. A French kiss is a bit more passionate, a bit more adult and mature. And sometimes in English, in the United States at least, we call this making out. I remember when watching the Harry Potter movies, British English speakers would always say snogging, which sounds disgusting.
Let's make out.
A quick kiss that you could give to a friend or your mom or just a child would be a peck. We call that a peck. Give them a peck. Or just, kind of a funny kiss would be a smooch. A smooch would be what we call, a kiss between two people where they're just kind of being playful about their kiss. It's not super romantic if two people are smooching. Let's finish off this fun lesson today with some idioms talking about love. Do you have someone in your life that you would describe as the one that got away? We call a person the one that got away when they are someone that we loved and maybe the relationship didn't work out for some reason. And we say, if it would have worked out or would have been the right timing, we probably would be in love now, married, having kids, whatever it might be. They were the one that got away.
That got away.
And sometimes we use this in a very serious manner. And sometimes we say this in a more joking fashion, like, my boyfriend when I was 5 years old, the one that got away. Some people are very emotional and they let people know exactly how they're feeling. And for this type of person, we say that they wear their heart on their sleeve. So this can be a pretty positive way to describe someone. It means that, they're very passionate and they show people how they're feeling. And they show people that they love them very easily. They wear their heart on their sleeve.
Wear my heart on my sleeve.
There is a whole dating show dedicated to this idiom. The phrase is love is blind.
Love is blind.
This means that when one person loves another person, they might just love them so much that they don't see the faults in the person's characters. They don't see the things that are wrong with them because they just love them so much. It describes a feeling of being able to see past people's faults just because you love them. On the dating show, Love is Blind, I believe the two people start dating and they can't see each other. So, it's trying to decide if you love someone based on entirely their personality instead of their looks. Hopefully, when two people are getting married, one person does not get cold feet. When we say that someone has cold feet before a wedding or a marriage, it means they're having second thoughts about something. They're reconsidering whether or not they want to spend the rest of their life with this person. Maybe they're just nervous about the commitment to get married. So that's what we mean when we say that someone has cold feet. It means they might be nervous about getting married. Oftentimes, people will date a lot in the United States in their 20s, but it's important for them to settle down by the time they turn 30. This means it's important to them to find a partner that they are going to commit to in a relationship and someone who they can see themselves getting married to and having kids, just not being so, in the lifestyle of dating and partying and things. They're settling down. They're trying to live just a simple family life. And when two people are in a relationship and one person either cheats or just breaks up with them out of nowhere, it means that they have broken the other person's heart. I hope you've never experienced having your heart broken, but this is just a common idiom we use to say when someone is devastated at the end of a relationship.
You're breaking my heart.
Let's go over some general weather terms and idioms, and then we'll get more and more advanced as the lesson goes on. Do you know the difference between talking about the weather forecast versus the weather climate? The forecast is typically what we describe the weather for the next day or the next week as, whereas the climate is what the weather is like generally in a place. The climate is studied over many, many years, and it kind of doesn't matter the season. Maybe for the climate, they'll say they have cold winters and warm summers, but for the forecast, it's very specific. It's saying it will rain on Monday, it will be sunny on Tuesday, whatever it might be.
It's a weather forecast, Helen.
When we use the phrase temperature, we measure in degrees of Fahrenheit in the United States. To be honest, when someone tells me the temperature in Celsius, I have no idea what they're talking about. I'm sure you feel the same if you're used to Celsius and someone says Fahrenheit. But for the United States, we talk about the temperature, the degree of heat or cool in Fahrenheit.
Sub-zero temperatures!
Humidity refers to the amount of moisture that's in the air. So we can talk about a place being either very humid or very dry. A desert would be dry, whereas a jungle is humid.
It's the humidity!
If you watch the weather forecast on television in the United States, the news forecast, they'll talk a lot about cool fronts and warm fronts. They're basically talking about the atmosphere, the way that the air is moving around. So if they say a cool front is coming, that's that cold air that's going to be in your area or in your state if you're living in the United States. And the same thing is for the warm fronts as well. Do you know what dew is? Well, if you're watching the weather forecast, they will have the dew point or the temperature at which dew is formed. Dew is what we call the water droplets that you see in the morning on different surfaces outdoors. It's the water from the air that collects on the surfaces that kind of condenses. We call that dew. So if it's very wet outside in the morning, we can say it's very dewy outside. That's another word that we use to describe the weather condition of everything kind of being wet in the morning. But it hasn't rained, it's the dew that forms on surfaces. We often use the term dewy as well when women want to achieve a sort of makeup look where their face looks a little bit shiny. We can say you look very dewy. Where I live, we have extremely cold winters, so I like to pay attention in the winter to what the wind chill is. So there's usually a temperature that's given when I open my phone and look at the weather app. Let's say it's 30 degrees Fahrenheit, so that's below freezing. Now, sometimes below that temperature, there will be the wind chill, and it will say it actually feels like 18 degrees Fahrenheit. The wind is so powerful that it actually makes the temperature feel colder than what a thermometer is measuring. We call that the wind chill.
Wind chill -15.
If you are ever in a scientific situation, you'll need to know the word precipitation. This means any sort of moisture that falls from the sky. So rain, sleet, snow, hail, all of those are called precipitation.
Weather. See storms. No precipitation.
When we talk about visibility, we're talking about how far you can see outside on a day. So lots of times if there is fog in the air, that's that kind of steamy looking moisture in the air. It almost looks like there's clouds on the ground. That's what we refer to as fog. But if we say there is low visibility, it means it's not safe to drive a car because you can't see very far. Or if we say there's good visibility, it means it's a very clear day and you can see from a far ways away.
Visibility 0.
Two informal terms that you'll need to know for English weather talk is iffy and dicey. So if we say the weather's kind of iffy today, it means we can't really tell if it's going to storm or rain or be nice outside. Even if we look at the forecast, it might say there's a 50% chance of rain which doesn't tell us much. It tells us it either will rain or it won't rain where we are. Maybe you're talking to your friend and your friend asks you, would you like to meet up at the park on Saturday? You might say, the weather is looking iffy, so maybe we should plan to meet inside. This means you don't know what the weather is going to do, so you're not going to plan your meetup because it might not be nice outside.
That sounds kind of dicey.
Oh, it's super dicey.
Now, when you say that the weather is dicey, it means the exact same as if any situation is dicey. It means it's kind of uncertain and risky. So maybe there is a storm. Maybe you are living in an area where there's snowstorms, and the storm could get really bad and it could be unsafe to travel. So you'll say, I don't really want to drive anywhere today because the weather is dicey. That just means dangerous and unpredictable. We can describe any storm and having to travel in it or go outside in it as being a dicey situation. It just means risky. Let's get into some more terms about talking about sunny or hot weather. It's very basic just to say it's hot out, it's sunny out. Let's talk about some more ways you can talk about this type of weather. If you want to level up from just saying it's sunny outside, if it's really humid, you can use the word muggy. It's very muggy outside. It can be uncomfortably warm and humid and everything's very damp. Maybe you start sweating instantly when you walk outside. We call this muggy weather in English. And this is definitely a negative way to describe humidity. It's muggy out today.
How's Washington? Muggy.
Again, if you want another term to describe this sticky weather, we can use that term sticky. Sticky just means it's very humid and it makes you sweat almost instantly outside. If you're watching the weather report in the United States, you might hear the weather reporter say there is a heat wave coming. So this is warm air that's going to be surrounding your area for a duration of time. Typically, heat waves last for about a week at the most. And this would be weather that's in the 100-degree Fahrenheit range for that extended period of time. We are in a heat wave right now, is how you might describe that sensation.
This heat wave is a gift.
There are so many ways to say that it is extremely hot outside. You might use boiling, baking, sizzling. Of course, these terms are all kind of kitchen terms you can describe heat with, but you can also use these terms to talk about really hot weather. If you want to be very dramatic about how hot it is outside, maybe you step outside and it feels like the ground that you're walking on might burn you. You can say it is blistering outside, or you could say it's blistering heat outside. It means it's so hot, it feels like it's going to burn your skin. You can also say it's scorching, it's blazing, or it's searing. All of these are good terms to describe extremely hot weather. So now you have a ton of different ways that you'll know when it's extremely hot outside how to describe it. And of course, if you wanted to say that there's no clouds in the sky, you could say it's a very clear day out. Usually we say it's clear when it's nice, warm weather, but it's not scorching or searing or too hot. It's just a nice, clear day. The great news is now you know tons of terms to describe hot weather, and I'm going to teach you just as many to describe cool or cold weather. The most common word we use when it's really cold out is we just say it's freezing outside. And it doesn't literally have to be freezing temperatures, but we just say that when we feel very cold. If you live in the United States, you might experience summer transitioning into fall and then winter. When you have hot weather for a long time and then all of a sudden the weather gets cold, it feels even colder than it actually is. It is freezing outside.
It's freezing.
If you want to say it's slightly cold or chilly, just a little bit uncomfortable, you could say, ooh, it's nippy outside. Especially in the morning time during the fall and the winter, we say it is nippy out today. That means it's just cold or cool in the morning, but not extremely cold.
In Bavaria, it's nippy.
When we experience frost on the ground outside, that's the white, icy substance that gathers on grass and trees and roofs. We say it's frost outside, or we say it's frosty outside. This just means there's that little bit of ice. It's definitely not snow, and it's typically only in the morning if it's frosty outside. If you've ever heard of frostbite, this is an injury that you get from being exposed to cold temperatures for too long. If it is extremely cold where you are in the United States and you are outside with no gloves, you are at risk of getting frostbite on your fingers. And this could be very dangerous. People even lose fingers to frostbite, so be careful.
Frostbite? In July?
If it is below 0 degrees Fahrenheit, we say it is sub-zero temperatures. In the coldest parts of the United States, there are sub-zero temperatures quite frequently in the winter.
I mean, that's why God created sub-zero winters.
And where I live, occasionally we get this type of weather that's called an Arctic blast. I think this term is a bit newer, and I don't know if it's necessarily scientific, but it just means that the cold air from north, from the Arctic, has traveled down to where we are, making it extremely, extremely cold and icy. It's just the coldest air you can kind of picture in the winter. We call that an Arctic blast. If it's not that cold out, you will hear us say it's a little chilly out today. It just means it's slightly uncomfortable. You might need a sweater or a light jacket. It's chilly.
Chilly.
Brisk and crisp are used in similar ways in English when we want to say it's kind of refreshingly cool outside, especially if it's been hot for a long time and then you go outside in the morning and it's starting to have, cooler air. It kind of feels good to have cooler air. You say, oh, it's so brisk out, or it's very crisp out this morning. This just means cool air, but that's also refreshing and not so cold where you feel freezing. And finally, we say windy to describe weather with lots of strong wind, but we can also say breezy as well. It's breezy out today. Breezy is typically used as a positive term to describe a nice breeze or wind outside. Now let me teach you how to describe rainy or wet weather. A light rain with small drops, the kind of rain that you can walk outside in and you're getting a little bit wet but not completely soaked. We call this a drizzle, a soft drizzle.
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 And we use drizzle in the kitchen when we're talking about putting a little bit of sauce over maybe a pastry, or we're drizzling a piece of meat with sauce. It means we're just lightly putting sauce in a line across something in the kitchen. So you can use drizzle to describe that light rain, or you can use it in the kitchen as well. We talk about rain being a shower. We use the term shower when it's just a brief period of time. So if it's raining all day, we wouldn't say, oh, we had a rain shower today. That would just be a rainy day in general. Now, if you're outside and all of a sudden out of nowhere, it's sunny out, but then also rain clouds move in and it rains for about half an hour, you can say, oh, we just had a shower this afternoon outside. So people would not think that you wash yourself. They would understand in English that that just meant a short period of rain. And oftentimes I hear weather reporters call those pop-up showers, meaning they come out of nowhere. Even if the weather says it's going to be nice, it showers or rains for a really brief period of time. Now, when you're outside and it starts raining extremely heavily on you, you could say it's raining cats and dogs. That's a very old idiom, and we don't actually use that often. We usually just say it is a complete downpour, or it's a downpour outside. This is the most common way in American English. I know there's a ton of different idioms, but I think a lot of the idioms describing rain are outdated or not used as frequently as they are taught. But I would just say it's a downpour outside if it's raining very heavily.
It was a downpour.
And then if you want to take it up a notch even more, it's even more rain. You can say it's a torrential downpour. This is a term that describes the most extreme amount of rain.
It is going to bring winds and it is going to bring torrential rains.
If you want to say that you got rained on and all of your clothing and your hair is wet, you can say we got drenched outside. So to get drenched means to get rained on very heavily. Or if you jumped into a pool and you came out of the pool with your clothes on, you could say my clothes are drenched. Or if your house got flooded, you could say everything is wet. It is completely drenched in my house. This means very wet. Everything is soaked with water. If you want to say that it's cloudy outside, you're not talking about it raining, but there's no sunshine. You can say it is overcast today. It's kind of a gloomy day. It's very overcast. This means clouds are covering the sky where you are. When we want to talk about rain that kind of makes a fog, that's like that cloudy feeling in the air, you can say it's really just misting outside. That's the lightest amount of rain that just makes it hard to see. Again, we go back to that term low visibility. It's misty out, it's misting, it's foggy. These are all very similar terms.
It's foggy.
If we're talking about rain, we definitely should use the word accumulate. So accumulate is an advanced English word you can use in other contexts besides weather, but it just means that something is gathering or building up. So if there's water on the ground, you could say the water is accumulating. There's water everywhere. Or oftentimes, if snow is not melting when it falls, it starts building up. We can say the snow is accumulating. It means that it's actually building up on the ground. And when there's small pools of water everywhere, we call those puddles. The term is puddle. There are puddles everywhere. The puddles are very deep if it rains a lot. You don't want to step in a puddle. And of course, if the water is uncontrollable outside and it's accumulating a lot, it feels like all of a sudden there's a river, we can call that a flood. Or if you are in a mountain area, sometimes flash floods happen, which means it's very dry and all of a sudden water comes out of nowhere, and it can be a very dangerous situation if there is a flash flood. So if you ever see a warning for flash flooding, make sure to get to high ground or get to a safe place and never drive through a flash flood because the water can be very deep and dangerous. Let's talk about how you can describe stormy or windy weather. We use the term thunderstorm to describe a storm that has thunder, which is like the very loud noise that's produced by the clouds, lightning or lightning strikes, and really heavy winds. So that's what we call a thunderstorm. Sometimes you'll see on your weather report that there is a thunderstorm warning. This means that there is going to be a thunderstorm. They're warning you. If there's a thunderstorm watch, it means there could be a thunderstorm. There's the type of weather that typically produces one, but they do not see one yet. So that's the difference if you are looking at your weather report and there's a thunderstorm warning. That means very dangerous, or a watch. That means just watch out. It's not for sure yet. The same goes for if you ever are in the United States and you see a tornado warning or a tornado watch. You need to be careful if it says tornado warning. That's when you need to take some shelter and some precautions for the storm. We can use the term gusting to describe winds that are very strong. We often say wind gusts. We can say wind gusts of 50 miles per hour. These would be really strong winds. And if you're ever in a really bad storm, they can be even stronger than this. For instance, if you are in a hurricane, this is a tropical storm that starts out in the ocean, and then usually hurricanes make landfall. So that means it's when it starts to affect people that live on the coast areas or near the ocean. They have gusting winds, and they have gusting winds of up to 100 miles per hour, which can be so dangerous and so devastating. So if you live in the United States, especially if you live in Florida or anywhere on the East Coast, you will often experience hurricane weather.
Hurricane!
When we talk about the spinning weather pattern that's like a hurricane or a tornado, we can call that weather a cyclone. So it's anything that spins in weather is what we call a cyclone.
It's been destroyed by cyclone winds.
And again, if you have never experienced it, a tornado is when there is violent spinning weather. You will almost see the funnel-like weather in a tornado. You've probably seen videos of it online if there's not tornadoes where you live.
Tornado! Tornado!
Finally, we talk about a gust, meaning the wind that comes, a gust of wind, or we can say it's a gust right now. Or we have hail, which means that small ice pellets are falling out of the sky. And sometimes, as you know, hail can be very big. It can be as big as golf balls outside. Thank you for learning advanced weather vocabulary with me. If you want to learn more vocabulary just like this, check out the next 2 videos on screen that I've put for you. It will help you advance your English and sound more like a fluent English speaker. I'll see you guys in the next video, and make sure to check out EnglishWithKayla.com. Goodbye!